I have two questions. We only have a couple minutes going into the first break, John. This is breaking my heart. It's going so fast. But the first one I don't want you to spend much time on. Who comes to you? The companies who are already doing well by their employees, which I would guess is your main client base because they're the people wanting to do better, or does it work the way I think it should, which is the company that really needs to improve? Is that who comes to you for consulting?
Well, and that's the catch-22. Those who don't get it don't come forward because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because I would love to help those organizations, but they are so stuck in their old quagmire that they're too busy chasing their tail to figure out that they could stop doing that if they just did what we're talking about. So it's the companies who are already on the cutting edge who tend to always want to do better, do better, do better. So it is frustrating that I'm preaching to the choir more times than I'm not.
Right. Now, this next question is the one that'll take longer, and don't feel like you have to answer it in 30 seconds, which is about all we have right now. But the companies that have that culture you talked about, the Disney, the Nordstroms, I think of the Container Store. It seems like they make that list a lot. What couple of things do those companies have in common? I'm guessing it's not necessarily the highest pay.
No, it has nothing to do with money.
That's so interesting.
It has to do with a very simple concept. What's it like to work here? Think of it like a marriage, the dailiness of a marriage. And do you want to come home in the evening and be with your spouse? It's that day-to-day relationship with your immediate supervisor primarily.
I would do a few hours on that topic if I had a different show. We are talking with John Putzier today. He is the author of Get Weird, Weirdos in the Workplace, and the soon-to-be-released The Everything HR Kit. We would love to have you join us on the show. The phones are open, 888-598-8464. Keep that dial right where it is for more of the Career Clinic. Thanks for listening to the Career Clinic. I'm your host, Maureen Anderson, and I have a confession to make. I listen to the show, too. I remember hearing a long time ago that David Letterman watches every show he tapes afterwards and is pretty hard on himself when things don't go perfectly, as they hardly ever do. So Daryl and I listened to this program afterward for how I can improve next time. Then he has the great pleasure of listening to it a third time to prepare the version we send to affiliates who run it on a delayed basis. And then he listens again. If there are clips I want to keep handy in my laptop. And I bring this up because one show I've listened to over and over and over is the one we did exactly a year ago with my guest today, John Putzier. And John, I do not say that to all my guests.
Oh, thank you.
Well,
thank you.
My criteria for having someone back on the show is, did we have fun? Because I think the only way to learn something is if you're having fun. And I also think that plays right back into what we were talking about before the commercial, and that is people decide if they want to work for you if your company has a reputation for being a fun place to work. And something you said that will always strike me is that pay has nothing to do with it.
No, you expect to be paid. That's a given. I mean, it's only a negative if you don't get it. But other than that, I mean, if you think about it, an accountant, a salesperson, an engineer, whatever your profession might be, you're generally going to get about the same compensation and benefits, across the board, unless it's something really unusual. And that is not what dictates whether or not you want to get out of bed in the morning and go to work. You have to work to make money, but that's not the motivator. The motivator as to where you're going to get that money is, like I said, what's it like to work here? And it really, it's almost so simple. I'm amazed I get paid to talk about this. But it is the number one reason why people leave an organization is that the boss was a jerk. And that's a very simple concept. If I don't like my boss, everything else becomes irrelevant, because the stress and the anguish and it just isn't the way you want to live your life. We spend most of our waking hours at work, which is sad. So if you hate it, that's pathetic.
Although it's kind of an acid test for how much you like the tasks you're doing. If you hate your boss and you still like your job, you must really love the work.
Yeah, it's sad because you want people to love the work they do, and when you mess it up by having a bad boss, boy, that's a lose-lose. When I say bad boss, there are all different categories of that. But I used to do retreats for managers, and I would bring out the old-fashioned flip chart and the markers, and I would say, many times we'd invite the spouses because I felt that there was a lot of correlations between managing and marriage. And I would just write across the top of the chart, marriage, and then I'd say, what are the qualities of a good marriage? And it would always be communication and trust and a sense of humor and all the things that we always think about. And then I just scratch out the word marriage and write manage. And it's the same thing, just without the sex. And all the same qualities. Well, maybe the sex too in some places.
Well, depends on where you work.
We were just talking
guess.
about David Letterman, not to bash the man.
Just one of the more high-profile cases.
Yeah. But it is a rather simple concept, but I'm shocked at how few people get it. And I think a lot of it's just they don't know how to manage people. And it's sad when you see a brand new manager who thinks, oh, good, now all I got to do is tell people what to do and life will be easy. And if that's all you had to do, even a caveman could do it. You don't need to have skills. It's called influence. It's called leadership. It's not just telling people what to do. That's there's a big difference between management and leadership. And that's really the crux of it.
If you're in a situation, John, where you have a bad boss, is there any way to fix that, or are you just pretty much screwed?
Well,
there may be other options, I suppose, but
the first thought went through my head won't be very acceptable. So I won't say. No, you really can't fix the boss, but you can play to their needs. And let's face it. The key to success is to make your boss make their life easier and better and help them advance. And I know that sounds like playing politics, and I talk about this. I just spoke to a group of young professionals being in their 20s, and I remember in my 20s, and I think we all, when we were starting out, thought, I don't want to have to play politics. That's beneath me. And when you get older and you realize politics is just influencing from the bottom up. And it's managing your boss. And if it gets you what you want, why would you not do it? It's not being, it's not being disingenuous or manipulative.
Got to break in here, John. I hate this part of my job. We're going to another commercial.
Okay.
And we'll be back in just a moment with more of the Career Clinic. One highlight of my career was being asked to blurb a book by my guest on the Career Clinic today, John Putzier. John, I didn't realize I looked at it this way, life, that is, and I'm not proud of it, but it turns out I'm constantly thinking in terms of totem poles and food change. Food change. I'm not thinking that, I'm thinking food chains. I perceived you as a person who will probably always be ahead of me when it comes to book sales, but being asked to blurb one of your books as a radio talk show host made me think maybe there wasn't this Grand Canyon-sized gap in our stations in life. And how weird am I that I even think about things like that?
That's not weird at all. I mean, I've got your book, as you know, and I think it's awesome. In fact, you and I are of the same ilk, which is why we like each other so much. But no, I don't put you on my totem pole anywhere, but as a peer, at least as a peer. I think we're of the same ilk in many ways.
Well, thanks.
Right before the break, I was, my brain tends to incubate stuff during the commercial break, and we were talking about the money thing, and I always use the phrase that a paycheck is like breathing. You take it for granted until it stops. And that's what organizations need to do, is to realize that it's not the paycheck that is what's attracting, retaining, and motivating people back to where we were before. It's just it isn't the motivator that they think it should.